Everybody? We're here at Urban Tech Connect 2021 for our keynote discussion, No Sugarcoating It, How I Grew My Company. I'm Roz Goldongwere. I'm a sports broadcaster for ESPN, and I cover the intersection of sports and business for the boardroom. I'm excited to be here with you all today to welcome Morgan DeBaun. She is the founder and CEO of Blavity Inc. And through Blavity and its catalog of properties, Morgan has built one of the largest media startups and lifestyle brands for Black millennials. So in sports and basketball, I read a lot of stats. So I'm gonna read y'all Morgan's stats real quick because she's basically been getting buckets for a minute now. Since launching Blavity Inc. in 2014, Morgan has led the company to successfully acquire Travel Noire, a travel platform for Black millennials, and Shadow and Act, a Black entertainment news site. Under her leadership, Blavity has launched several leading consumer summits, including Summit 21 for Black women creators, and AfroTech, the largest tech conference for Black innovators and founders. While scaling the company, Morgan has raised $11 million from top Silicon Valley venture firms such as GV and Comcast. And I'm extra delighted to be here, y'all, because Morgan is my actual real life friend. I'm proud of her. I'm inspired by her. I know I'm not the only one. And the good thing about that is Morgan's door is open. She is a small business advocate and advises early stage entrepreneurs on how to scale their business in her signature WorkSmart advising program. So first, what's up, Morgan? Welcome to the stage. How you doing, girl? Good to see you.
Doing well. Thank you for that intro. Loved it.
Yeah, I'm out of breath, honestly.
It's a long bio. It's a long bio.
That was the abbreviated version. No, but I'm really excited to kind of talk into the nitty gritty of how you've built your company. I think just let's start first, kind of bigger picture here. You started Blavity Inc. in 2014, and it's about 7 years later now as you look back. At what point in your career arc do you feel like Blavity really found its rhythm and purpose?
You know, I think that 7 years ago, I was 24. I was still working in tech at the time, and I wanted to build a business and build a brand that spoke to the issues, the conversations, and built a platform for our generation, our homies, as we were young and doing our thing in New York or LA.
So cute, young, doing our thing. We're still young, doing our thing a little.
We are, but we're not in our 20s anymore. Okay. But it would still, I'll speak for myself. But it was still like, there was no Black brand that was creating experiences and content holistically for us. There was individuals. You had Issa, who was doing incredible things. She was still using YouTube as her main platform at the time. You had musicians and artists, but not necessarily from a lens of a media conglomerate, if you will, that's building content within an ecosystem for us. And at the time, Mike Brown was also happening in St. Louis, where he had been murdered, and there's a lot of unrest in St. Louis, which is where I'm from originally. And I was kind of feeling a little helpless because as a tech person, I'm also very short and small. So like me being in the streets, like really wouldn't have done much. So I was like, okay, how can I use my skills in tech, in building platforms and understanding kind of the business ecosystem to help us move forward in the culture and help create a platform and a mouthpiece for the creators, the folks who are doing the work on a day-to-day basis. And I can be of service behind the scenes, and our company can be of service behind the scenes. And that's why, I think our purpose has stayed the same since we launched, and we've really stayed true to the culture of why we created Blavity. We're very Black, unapologetic. When I first started, we're still Black and very unapologetic now. And it's been an incredible 7-year journey.
Yeah, and right at the beginning, a lot of people often are just rushing to take investments, money, but you decided against VC funding for Blavity initially. Why?
Yeah, so I bootstrapped the business for the first year. I didn't want to raise money for a few reasons. One, like, I didn't know anything about raising money. Black girl from St. Louis, like, raising money was not a part of the culture. Like, what? The idea that somebody is going to give you millions of dollars and they don't really know you and they want you to give them a return on the investment, but you don't technically have to give it back. Like, I just thought that was crazy. Like, that concept was very difficult for me to understand. And so I was focused on building the business. And there's so many, most businesses aren't venture backed, right? Like, most businesses, you turn a profit, you reinvest some of that profit to grow the business, you take some profit out. Like, it's a normal small business. So I was like, I can just build this thing and figure out how to make it run without venture funding. Now, at the same time, I was very conscious of the fact that, like, being in Silicon Valley, if I was going to raise money, I'm in the right place at the right time. And so I should consider it if it's the right option. But I didn't want to take money and then be beholden to these strangers for 5 to 7, 10 plus years. And, when you take investors, they get ownership of your business, they get a fraction of control. They have the right to help you set and influence your strategy and your agenda. And I wanted to make sure that we knew who we were before we had other people trying to tell us who we were.
What were some of the biggest challenges of bootstrapping early on?
Well, one is really expensive. I was paying for everything out of my pocket. So I kept my job as long as I could without it impacting the business. And then I would reinvest my money for my income into the company. And then even once I went full time on Blavity and was still bootstrapping, I then took a consulting gig on the side so that I didn't have to pay myself an income, so I could still live. So, it's a hustle. And I think that can be an extra layer of being tired, when you're building something. But I was really grinding it. And the team, my early employees, who many of which are still with us today, 7 years later, like, they are incredible hustlers and people who had side jobs because we couldn't afford to pay people, myself included and others, when you first start, because it's really, you've got a lot to do to get there. So when I raised my first round of funding, one of the motivations was because I wanted to pay my employees. I wanted to have employees in general, not contractors. I wanted people to have benefits. I wanted them to have 401ks. We needed a physical space. So all that money that I raised the first time just went straight back into the team. And then from there, as I raised more rounds, it went to growing the business in other ways.
Okay. I want to talk personally, like, what have you found works for you and for many others who, might be in similar situations where they're trying to get something off the ground and they're working like a full day. And you talked about having a second job on top of that and you're tired. How are you still getting the best version of yourself during those times?
Well, I definitely don't think I was the best version of myself. I gained a ton of weight. I don't think I was the best, daughter or life partner, or, I definitely couldn't have had kids at that time. I do think there's a level of sacrifice when you are really trying to live in your purpose and build something from scratch when the odds are against you. And that's not something that people should shy away from if they're really serious about their business. Now, I know that the culture, on Instagram and TikTok is self-care and balance and let me take these days off and go on vacation and all that stuff. And I think that's necessary for most people. But if you really want to be like the best of the best in your industry and in your space, and again, defy the odds and take money from people and try to give them a return, you better be grinding. And it's not forever, right? Like, now I have a more balanced life. I can, do the Peloton in the morning. I can go on vacation. I can do those things, but I was in the mud with everybody else, shoulder to shoulder, for 4 or 5 years, no breaks. And I think that personally, there's definitely some consequences to that. The younger you can start, the better, because you'll have less responsibilities. And even if you are later in life and you're trying to make that transition to being a full-time entrepreneur and really focusing on your business, still try to reduce your risk as much as possible. Like, reduce your expenses so that you're not feeling pressure to take cash out the business. Make sure you're setting up a work-life structure with your family, your partner, to make sure that there's kind of an agreement on the time commitment that it takes for this. So just do your best to set up as much flexibility as possible so that you're not constrained by cash.
When do you know it's time as a startup that you need more cash and it has to come from outside? It's time to, take that investment or at least seek it.
Well, I think raising money isn't for everybody. I know that it's really sexy right now and that everybody's talking about how much money they raise. I generally don't even tell people how much money I raise because I'm just like, it doesn't matter. Like, it's not a good sign necessarily. It's what's important is what's your vision, and is your vision one that is a venture-backable business? And are you building a venture-backable business, and do you want to? So if you
What's
are
what's a venture-backable business?
So venture-backable business is a business that meets the criteria for an investor to want to invest in your business because they think they can get a 10x return. So they give you $1, you give them 10 back. And if you're doing like a coffee shop and you just want to keep it local in your region, even if you want to have 5, 10 shops, like that may not be a venture-backable business because you may never plan on selling it, which means you'll never give them their money back. How are they going to get their money back if you never sell the company? So there's just thinking through what actually the criteria is of investors, not just that you want money. I think a lot of founders start with like, I need money to grow my business. It's like, great, but is it actually a good investment? How are you going to give them their money back? How are you building this thing at scale?
What else do you need to consider when scaling and trying to grow the business?
I think you need to be able to weather the ups and downs and the storms. There's nothing guaranteed in entrepreneurship, and it is a lifestyle. So I think, and the lifestyle is not the one you see on Instagram. It's a lifestyle that's like not Instagrammable because you're sitting in front of a computer all day or you're on calls all day. And I think that there's like, it never ends. I think that's the other thing. When I first started the business, I had like my goals and I had my milestones, and then you hit them. And then you have another set of goals and another set of milestones, and the levels just keep going. And so once I accepted that, I really started to approach entrepreneurship as a lifestyle, and that like my identity as an entrepreneur, as like I'm an entrepreneurial person as opposed to a job, right? Where there's like a start and a finish, a clock in, a clock out. I think if more entrepreneurs and small business owners evaluated that for themselves, and I'm really talking about venture-backed startups. You want to run a small business, you want to clock in, clock out because you're running a pesticide, small business, small company, great, have at it. That's a lifestyle business, that's fine. But if you're going to be a venture-backed business and go for the moon and go for huge valuations and raise a ton of money, then like you're really signing up to be an entrepreneur and a founder, for the foreseeable future.
All right. So let's say you are going into that room and you are thinking about being, a founder and really building out that kind of a 10X type company, on your journey. And also you've talked in articles and before about going after investors that look like us, right? Mm-hmm. Black, and you were still rejected. What happened?
Yeah, well, this was a while ago. When I first went out to raise money, I was learning everything for the first time. And so I went to people who I thought knew or would have empathy for the customer that I was solving for. So I didn't want to go into a room and try to convince someone that like the Black audience in itself was valuable, because I knew that I would already be starting from a deficit point of view and not necessarily like, okay, we all know it's valuable, but am I the right one to go and capture this audience and build this business and build this platform? And is there what's the business strategy for it? So I wanted to skip that why do Black people matter conversation. And so I went to Black investors. Now at the time, this was 7 years ago, so the Black venture capital scene looks very different. Many VCs were just raising their funds for the first time. Many Black partners weren't actually decision makers. They were as part of a larger group, but they weren't not managing partners. So they still had to get approval from other people. Luckily, the Black tech ecosystem on the venture side has changed significantly. And so there's a lot more decision makers at the table, but I didn't know the dynamics and the inner workings of power and control and allocating funds. So I was like, I don't understand why you guys keep talking to me and not writing a check. Now I get it. You couldn't write a check. You didn't have a check to write. Okay. But you had this title of venture capitalist. And as a Black founder, I don't know the difference between people who can allocate and not allocate. So it was a really frustrating experience for me because I felt like I had failed because my vision was wrong or my customer was wrong. And in reality, I was just going after the wrong investor profile. So I then eventually pivoted and worked on going after social impact investors because they had there was a lot more of them, one, and two, they understood the value of the Black community in terms of the change and impact that we could have if we can get a critical mass of Black millennials on one platform. And that's exactly what we did. You know, we raised money from social impact investors and continued to build out the business.
So you pivoted and decided you've got to find a different type of investor. Now, as far as what you're actually saying in those meetings and presenting, you know, what's important to keep in mind if someone is pitching or selling their company?
You know, in the beginning stages of a business, and I would say, you know, it goes angel round, pre-seed fund raising, seed round, and then Series A, and Series B, etc. And I would say in your angel round, your pre-seed and seed round, really, actually, let's say pre-seed and angel round, it's really about the person. Like the people are investing in you. They're kind of poking and pressure testing your thought process, your ability to be coachable and to take feedback, your ability to be resilient, your hustle, the likelihood that you're going to be able to manage the ebbs and flows and the ins and outs of business and all technology changes and market changes and pandemics and everything and not give up. And so my recommendation for early stage founders is like, yes, you know, have your materials tight, be professional, you know, make sure everything looks good, know your numbers, but it's all because it's a reflection of you, which is really who people are making a decision on the investment on. You know, there's going to be 110 people with the exact same idea as you, but why are you going to be the one that wins?
And what about after that?
Well, after you raise?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think for fundraising, you know, that's the other thing. And when you're signing up to be a founder in a venture-backed company, you're also raising every 6 to 9 months effectively. So as soon as you close your round, you immediately start thinking about your next round because you want to keep that momentum up and it takes a long time to raise. So while your team is operating and spending the money, you know, or you're overseeing that, you're also starting and nurturing the conversations for the next round of funding. So it's just, that's why I'm saying it's a lifestyle choice. Like it's not like oh, we're done, I raised a seed round. It's like, great, what are you doing for your Series A? Like, it keeps going. Now, I took myself out of that hustle because that life was not something that I enjoyed. And it's not something that I wanted to continue on the rat race for always fundraising. So I haven't raised since 2018 because we adjusted our business so that we didn't necessarily have to raise officially because we needed it. So if we do decide to take money, it's either strategic or it's because of a partnership we want to do or a relationship that we want to have, not because we're going to run out of money.
Yeah, no, honestly, I keep making the comparison to sports, but there's a lot of carryover. I mean, as far as like endurance and stamina, you know, absolutely. And I see that same, it's almost like a competitive edge in some ways to be able to keep doing that. What advice do you have for being rejected or hearing no?
Yeah, I mean, I'm rejected every day. I get every day I get a report from clients who told us no, you know, and I love those reports because it's about why did they say no? Was our price off? Was our strategy off? Was our marketing off? Was our pitch off? Did we get beat by another competitor? Did we not follow up? Was our etiquette off? Did we why? You know, I want to know just as much about the wins and the losses because it gives me data on how we can do better. And I think that no's are just one more step to a piece of information for you to get to a yes or to get to a maybe, you know, which is not a no, right? Or maybe later. And a lot of those maybe laters when you're fundraising turn into yeses if you're consistent. I mean, there's people who told me no when I went to first raise money who are now on my cap table, who are now investors. And I think that me being open to no's made people, then when I came back a year later, 2 years later, 3 years later with results, then it's like, oh man, she's a hitter. Like she gonna win. Like even if you know, like she's gonna keep going, right? And that is like the theme of Blavity in general is like, cool, like The world ad market's down, bet we're going to do a conference business. Okay. Conference business is thriving, but pandemic hits, boom, we're going to do a virtual experience. Like, you've got to be able to move around, and you can't take the no's personally. You know, it's just got to be a piece of information that you use to be better.
Definitely. I mean, there's just, you got counter moves. And, you know, well, yeah, you got counters for your counters.
I didn't play basketball, but you know.
But no, yeah, I see you got a little jive to you. I see it. But we will actually, I do want to ask you about your moves in the pandemic. But first, I want to just talk about one of the coolest things you did was create AfroTech. And I feel like there's two buzzwords we often hear in business: disruptive and authentic. How do you protect that space that you successfully created, but keep doing it year after year after year?
Yeah. I mean, I tell the team all the time, we have to out innovate ourselves. We have to leapfrog ourselves. You know, some of the best innovative companies create products that directly compete with themselves, because they would rather disrupt themselves within their own company than to have somebody else disrupt. So last year with AfroTech, I was like, oh man, this could be a moment of disruption. If somebody, the barriers to creating an in-person experience are much higher, because it's a really capital intensive business. You've got to buy out the hotels, you've got to buy out the venues, you've got to fly everybody in, all this stuff before you get paid. So there's a higher barrier to entry in that business. It's easier to defend it once you get to scale. But then on virtual, you know, last year, everybody and their mom was having an event. Okay. Like, anybody could be like, we're doing a Black Tech conference. Everybody was on Instagram Live. Everybody was in Clubhouse. So there was no barrier to entry on curating a critical mass of people, because technology is really accessible, and you're not, you know, it doesn't cost much. So I said, all right, well, we can't come with a Zoom conference, okay, because that's not defensible. So I was like, we got to do something they ain't seen before, right? So we had avatars. You could ride around in a speedboat. We had concerts. We had giveaways. We had DJ booths. You could literally walk into AfroTech as an avatar version of yourself and walk around and say, hey, girl, like, nice to meet you. Where are you? Like, we had booths, you know, recruiting booths. So for me, it's always thinking through, like, what's the next level? What are the things that only we can do? Like, what are we uniquely positioned to do? And that's the other thing I ask the team often when we're coming up with ideas. Well, what is the unique thing that only we can do? Like, why us and not Complex? Why us and not Vice? Why us and not CNBC? What can we uniquely do? And that really is something that I encourage all entrepreneurs to think about, is like, what is that critical advantage that you can have in your business or your team can have, so that you can always win even when things change?
Absolutely. A true understanding of your identity and mission. And then, you know, you guys were really able to capitalize on amazing elite innovation during the pandemic, and still holding AfroTech. But, you know, the pandemic humbled a lot of businesses. And, you know, on the business side, for you as a leader, what were the ways when you had something, adversity hit you, it was unexpected, never seen it before? How did you have to pivot and respond and adjust and adapt to lead your company during that moment?
Yeah, it was a really intense time. I definitely feel like I lost a lot of hair last year, just handling all the pressure of making a lot of decisions, really tough decisions that I don't wish on any small business owner. My first thing was to assess the risk, you know, to have a really good understanding of like what's at stake and what's the worst case scenario. And the worst case scenario at the time, which was in March of last year, was we have to cancel the whole conference. We lose money because we have to give all our money back for all the advertisers who had already signed up as sponsors, because we sell sponsorships, you know, months in advance. My whole team gets COVID. Everybody's sick. You know, there was a lot of things that I had to consider the worst case scenario for. And then we threw them all on the board as a management team. All of our directors and VPs, we got in a room and we said, here's the worst case. How do we plan against it? You know, if everybody gets sick, what's our contingency? We need to train everybody else up on everybody else's job. We need to make sure that we have all the passwords, everything, so that if you do need to take some time off, you're covered, right? Okay. How are we going to manage doing that and then having to operate? You're sick and you need to plan something. You need to continue to work. The news must go on. Okay. So how do we do that? How do we manage our freelancing team? So it was a big kind of war room that we ran for about 30 days. And I'm very proud of like how our team came together in that time, despite the challenges and the tough choices we had to make. And it's like, now we're so much stronger. We've been through fire together, and it's like, oh, somebody says no to a campaign. I'm like, that ain't nothing. Like, you know, like there's nothing that someone could throw at us and I'd be like, oh my gosh, like the world's ending. Like everything is like, we'll figure it out. Like we've got unlimited options, unlimited creative thought, and our only limitation is, you know, our ability to process information and think through those problems.
Literally, it's like whatever doesn't kill you make you stronger. It's like you came out bolder after surviving that.
So bold. So
like
bold.
Try me, I dare you.
Try me. After everything, you're gonna put me through a pandemic? Okay, we got it. We got it.
So you've definitely been through some battles. You got your scars, your wounds, your lessons, your victories, your wins, your confidence, from the beginning of your career to now. And Morgan, you're so young, you know, like you're still there's a whole second and third and fourth act for you even after this. But up until this point of your young life and young career, how would you say you've evolved as a leader?
Oh, I definitely listen more. I was very opinionated when we first started. I needed to be, because no one else could articulate the vision but me, because I was still working it out, you know. But now things are set, right? Our culture is set, our brand is set. We have like Blavity. If somebody says AfroTech, you immediately come up with a vision of what it looks like. If I say, all right, we're going to go to AfroTech this year, what outfit should you wear? You can think of the outfit you would wear, you know. Well, then I've succeeded at setting the vision. Exactly. I've succeeded at setting the vision versus
I see my little bantu nuts.
That would absolutely fly at AfroTech, you know. Like I would definitely rock this hoodie, like, you know, versus if I say, hey, we're going to do like a Travel Noire, like video thing, and it's going to be in Tulum, you'd be like, boom, I know what I'm going to do there, right? So like the fact that the brand comes to life, it has its own identity, it's got its own structure, and it means something to people. This word meant nothing to anyone outside of St. Louis, Missouri, okay? So like that was my job, was to set that vision. And now my job as the CEO, a young CEO, but CEO nonetheless, is to make sure that we are able to grow and set the vision for 2-3 years out, right? And to figure out the strategy and the plans for what we're going to do in the future, while I have an incredible team that's operating on the day-to-day. And then also to make sure that we still have the financing and the money and the cash flow and everything operationally to be able to achieve those visions and those goals.
Sis, I'm really trying to find out about this Tulum trip with Travel Noire. What's going on?
Not doing any trips to Tulum. But if you go to the website and you type in Tulum, we got you an itinerary, so you know where to go, where to stay, everything.
You just let me know. I'm ready. As soon as y'all announce the next something going, I'm ready.
It's very COVID in Tulum. I think we should stay at home on that one.
All right, fair. That's you putting on your, you know, leadership hat.
Yes.
Me, I'm trying to get my likes up on a Graham hat right now in Tulum. No, but you know, one of the cool things that you do is you mentor and you advise early stage entrepreneurs. Is there any advice that you like find yourself giving often, you know, over and over to young
yeah, a lot of things. I feel like a broken record. So I actually started a podcast for this exact reason, because I was like, I am saying the same thing over and over. I'm just gonna like say it to the masses. So I have a podcast called the Work Smart Podcast. It's every week. I just talk about like what's going on behind the scenes at Blavity. I talk about how I've done things like raise money, or how I manage my schedule, or how I negotiate influencer deals, or like whatever it is. The things that come up most often that we focus on in the Work Smart advising program when I'm kind of doing my closed door mentoring sessions with folks is, one, like really getting a handle on your calendar. If you're a small business and you've only got 1 or 2 employees, and you're one of those 2 employees, you know, you've got to really manage your workflow and your calendar, like Google Calendar and automations, and really understand how you're spending your time. And then also understanding how you should be spending your time. So not only are you the main doer and operator in your business, but you're also the visionary the CEO, the person who's setting the direction. And if you don't have enough time to focus on being the CEO, you're not going to ever have enough time to grow your business, which means you're going to stay flat. Your revenue is going to stay flat. Your business is going to stay flat. Money in, money out will stay the same. And that's probably not why you got into business in the first place. You probably wanted some more freedom, not less freedom. So I always start with time management and personal development, because before you can go innovate on your business model, before you can start launching new products, before you can start marketing things differently, if you don't have any time, I can't help you. So that's where I start.
Yeah. And you know, that actually is something that I can even apply for myself. And I think that's cool too. And you know, that mentorship and good advice can happen not only like between you know, an advisor and someone beneath them, but also between friends. And especially for women and Black women, I feel like it's not, in my personal experiences, I feel like it's not always as natural to talk business and money. And like, that's why it's really cool to be here with you today on stage, because we are actual real life friends. And Morgan is someone, she's one of about two, maybe three women of my many friends that I have that I actually talk about business and money with. Like, you know, Morgan, how can we curate healthy wealth building conversations within our friend groups?
Yeah. Well, it's tough. There's a lot of jealousy and competition, you know, that goes into relationships with peers. And yet I think it's important to push past that, because as we are all going through this experience together, you know, it's not a winner takes all mindset, right? Like, I want you to have as much money as possible so you can buy me dinner. Okay. So like, that's what I want. So let me help you get there. Like, it benefits all of us, for all of us to win, everybody to be thriving, everybody to be able to, like, let's go to Tulum, you know? And like, I think that setting those goals together is also really fun. That's one way that I approach it, is like, all right, bet, like, let's invest together. Let's co-invest in a startup together. Let's share deals together on real estate. We're both interviewing for jobs. Let's like go through the interview process together and like practice and everything. So I think that if you can turn it into like, we're building our lives in this tribe as a community, then it becomes more of a, like, it's to everyone's advantage for all of us to share information, because I want my kids to come to your house for the summer. You know, I want your kids to intern at my company for the summer. Like, I want to do all of that. So I think thinking about it from a tribe point of view, I think helps remove that anxiety of like being really transparent and vulnerable financially.
Yeah, I mean, I know for me, it can even just be like, you know, sharing information with each other. Not all of you even have to be the expert in the room. It could just be like, here's an article into the group chat, you know, and it just kind of makes it more natural and you guys can grow together. I'm fortunate that Morgan is my friend and she's been helping me get my life together. But as we wrap up this keynote discussion at Urban Tech 2021, I want to finish by asking, looking forward, you know, where do you see the future for Blavity? And what do you see as the future for Morgan?
Yeah, I think for Blavity Inc, you know, we've got 5 brands under our portfolio. We work really closely with a variety of other Black media publishers to help them monetize and grow their scale on the revenue side. So I'm very happy with where we are and how far we've come despite, you know, the COVID disruption. And so for me, it's about how do we provide more value and more content to the Black creator community as well as to our audience. So how do we build up that creator ecosystem? And then also how do we then use our distribution channels to be able to get that back out to people? So that looks like adding new channels of distribution. So video, audio, what does it look like for you to be able to open up an app on your TV or on your phone and be able to get access to our content? Well, you're not going to read an article on your TV, right? So we need to make other content that's accessible for different platforms, and all with the lens of like not even just us in-house doing it, but how do we enable other Black creators that are in our network from Shadow and Act, from AfroTech, from Blavity to be able to leverage our brand so that they can use it to go and reach their audience through us, right? So lots of things in the works. And I'm really excited about kind of like how this will look in the next 2 to 3 years, because I do think that COVID accelerated a lot of people's at-home video consumption and audio consumption behaviors. They were already in the works, but people moved a lot faster because we weren't, in a work environment on a day-to-day. So more to come there. And then in terms of me personally, we are investing a lot in our executive team. So hiring new C-level folks to come on board and help us scale that have 15, 20 plus years experience in media. Also growing our engineering team. So I'm looking forward to spending more time on the product side of the business, getting a little bit back into my creator function as opposed to my like operational taskmaster world as a CEO. And yeah, I'm really enjoying that.
Yeah, I'm super excited for you, and I'm always happy to see you win. Dinner's definitely on you. No, I got you.
Come to Nashville, and I got you.
Yes. Congrats as well. We homeowners, baby. Lots of wins all around. Actually, sisterhood here. We're both homeowners for the first. Yeah, so that's been cool in our friendship to do that around the same time too.
Yes, we're both cash poor.
It's true. No. But Morgan, I want to thank you so much for your time and insights. You make everything very digestible. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for an incredible interview. And I hope for anyone listening that you have some tangible takeaways, and feel free to hit me up or listen to the podcast for more.
Absolutely. So thank you for joining us at Urban Tech Connect 2021 for this keynote discussion. She's Morgan DeBaun. I'm Roz Gold-Onwude. It's really been a pleasure spending time and sharing insight with all of you. Be well.